Joining us from our Abuja studio is Senator Victor Umeh, the senator representing Anambra Central Senatorial District, and of course, an NDC chieftain. Senator Umeh, good morning, sir. Welcome to the morning brief.
Good morning, Buki and Jeffrey. It's good to be here. Good morning, Nigerians, and happy weekend.
It's good to have you, sir. I'd like to begin with the 2027 general elections, of course, starting with the primaries that were concluded some weeks back. I believe congratulations will be in order. You, Senator Tony Umeh and Chief Emeka Onunkwo have emerged as senatorial candidates for the Nigeria Democratic Congress, for Anambra Central, Anambra South, and I believe Anambra North. And, you know, in the light of the circumstances, this appears a feat because we gather that about 40 out of the entire Senate population didn't secure tickets for the 2027 general elections. Help us understand how you achieved this feat amid what has turned out to be a very controversial outcomes of the NDC primaries, with, you know, some members alleging that they didn't even get a ground to contest, how much more a level playing ground, with others, you know, also talking about the caucus in the NDC leadership that is allegedly demanding 10 million naira bribes, 20 million naira bribes.
Well, Buki, thank you very much. Party primaries have always not been a very smooth exercise, in the sense that people who are jostling to become candidates of a political party in an election will always want to be the ones that will be nominated, or those who will prevail over others. When they don't succeed, the natural thing they do is to run around and cry foul that something has happened in breach of one process or the other. But if they had succeeded, they will keep mute. It is not common to Nigerian Democratic Congress alone. Other political parties had their primaries. And you agree with me that all over the parties, there are grumbles, because people who do not succeed will cast slur on the process. We are used to these things in political party administration. But what I will say is that whoever alleges anything will have to prove it. Allegations of taking money from people and all that, the question will be, why are you giving people money to be able to become candidates of your party? If you get into an unholy business and you lose your money, it is not sufficient for you to come and start crying, because nobody compelled you to give anybody money. Like it is said, in bribery, both the giver and the taker are guilty of an offense. And you can't come out to the public and begin to wash your dirty linens in the public that somebody took your money when you are inordinately trying to bribe the process. So the parties have had their primaries. There are complaints here and there across the parties. The Nigerian Democratic Congress, it wasn't immune to such complaints, because people were struggling to prevail over others. But by and large, every political party has its own internal mechanisms to be able to address grievances of aspirants who took part in a process. So if you have a complaint about their own primary, you have to go through the internal mechanisms provided by the party to ventilate your grievances. But by and large, in our own party, we have held our our primaries, and our candidates have emerged. So for 1 week or two now, there has been a lull in people who are crying wolf. The parties are cleaning their houses. And the next stage, today is 26th of June, the parties are supposed to receive their access code to uploading the names of their candidates to the INEC portal. So the whole process is advancing, and I believe that by the time the whole process is over, by the 12th of July, those who are aggrieved, some already are in courts. And that's the natural thing to do.
But Senator Umeh,
of anything, you can go to court, yes.
Senator Umeh, that there is a law doesn't mean that those who are aggrieved are happy with the situation, with the scheme of things. But for you, is it an animal farm situation, or are you part of the leadership caucus, hence you were giving a soft landing? Did you have to pay a bribe, allegedly, to get your ticket alongside your colleagues?
There was nothing like that. And it's not a case of animal farm where some animals are bigger or stronger than others. I went through the primary. I went through the purchase of expression of interest form. I went through the process of screening. I also went through the process of buying the nomination form. I also went through the process of participating in the primary, in the voting. I was in the voting too. So if somebody says that he has been intimidated or anything, the person probably did not assess his chances properly before coming. For those who prevailed, like the names you called out in Anambra State for the senatorial primaries, those 2-3 candidates, nobody would have beaten them because of their standing in the society and their performance. Like myself that has been in the Senate, you know me very well. And I've been involved in the political process here, and I've been very strong in participating in things that will bring a better Nigeria into being by my parliamentary contributions. So it will be a surprise to you to hear that somebody who is not known is claiming that he defeated me in a primary. So those things, I laugh over them. But it's not that people cannot be aggrieved. And it is not that somebody who has been there cannot be defeated, but the person can be defeated by a stronger force, somebody who people will be convinced about his mission. If you don't have any mission, nobody will look in your way. So it will end up with complaints because you are not present, you are not trusted, you are not being looked at somebody who will give a better and effective representation of the people. So that is the thing. And when some of these things begin to happen, we have to objectively look at the complaints to see if the person who is complaining stood any chance in the process. If it is not so, the best thing to do is to allow him ventilate his grievances and go through the processes allowed by the party internal mechanism.
All right, let's talk about what played out in the Senate, I think yesterday. The big one, which has to do with the issue of state police. That's what I'm most interested in, beyond what is played out in your party, because that has a more national approach on this particular future we're walking into. And my concern are two things, and I am sure the general concerns of Nigerians will be around that sentiment as well. First, whether there are enough guardrails to prevent governors from abusing the process. I've seen some, provisions that has to do with directions being given to, say, commissioners of police. But one thing people are also not looking at is other guardrails that should prevent the federal government from overreaching itself. So I want to read just, let me just say, one of the amendments that was done to section 214, I think that should be sub 14, said the legality, because this provision provides a premise, more like a premise for which the governor, or rather the president, can intervene through this federal police in taking charge of policing in the states at the state level. So it says the legality, scope, duration, and conduct of an intervention under this section shall be subject to judicial review, and no intervention shall dissolve a state police service or suspend the elected institutions of a state except in accordance with this constitution. In fact, I'm trying to look for, there's another provision that had to do with the president cannot even touch elected officials. When I see it, I'll bring it up for our viewers. But these guardrails that are being put in place, do you think they are sufficient enough to insulate the system from abuse?
Well, let me start by saying that the concept of state policing It's a very noble concept for the fact that we have been inundated over time in this country with the collapse of security. You know, the security architecture of Nigeria has not proven to be effective in such a way that people can go to go to bed with their eyes closed and hoping to wake up in the morning. Security breaches have been very inundating in the past couple of years. And the issue of insecurity in Nigeria has become a national emergency in the sense that everybody has been concerned about what do we do to be able to provide effective security to Nigerians. It is as a result of this that the Senate and the National Assembly embarked on a constitutional review. I'm a member of the Senate Committee on Constitutional Review, and we went around the country, held public hearings, and took views of Nigerians on the vexed issues of insecurity in Nigeria. And from what we gathered from across Nigeria, majority of the people, almost everybody on the issue of state security gave the nod, because the idea is for us to be safe. If we're to be safe, then we'll start thinking about how to improve on security. State police was one of the things pointed out to be something that to help out in the difficulties, because a state police is reasoned to be closer to the people. And if we have a state police that is closer to the people, that the tendency will be, and objectively true, that people will be acting more patriotically in their areas of jurisdiction, unlike the present central policing we have, where somebody from Maiduguri will be posted to Rivers State as Commissioner of Police. Somebody will be posted from Kauran, Lamoda, or Zamfara State to go and become Commissioner of Police in Anambra State. So all those things were all looked at, and we felt that if we bring police down nearer to the people by establishing the state police, you will now have somebody who is from a particular state being in charge of the police in that state. And if you are from that state, you will be more patriotic, because you will not allow that level of insecurity in your home state. So many things were argued and considered. So before arriving at the need to establish this state police service, everything was put into place. Like you also said, how do you put the guardrails so that somebody will not abuse it? People have continued to talk about the governors becoming very powerful, using the apparatus of the state police to harass citizens, particularly political opponents. Yes, such concerns may be there, but the important thing is, how do we make policing effective? Intelligence gathering, crime control, how do we make it much more effective than we have now? Because what we have now is not serving the purpose. And that's how even the president also gave a strong support to this, because he's the chief security officer of the country. And I'm sure he has not been happy with the breakdown of security in Nigeria over time. Everybody reasoned together to come to this.
Yeah, distinguished, without trying to, before my colleague comes in, I try to look at the cons. I think we can all agree on what the pros are. It's inevitable. We need state police. But given where we operate in, I chose, maybe with other people as well, but I chose to look at the caution signs that we need to look at, the things we need to look out for, so that we don't spoil this great idea of state police. And I'm going to read that provision against that was altered in section 214. Is an addition to it, I don't know. The legality, scope, duration, and conduct of an intervention under this section shall be subject to judicial review, and no intervention shall dissolve a state police service or suspend the elected institutions of a state except in accordance with this constitution. What was the thinking of the legislators when they were writing this particular provision? Is it to curb the incidents where the president will not do what he did in Rivers State by suspending elected officials that got to the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court didn't really intervene. They just gave their own opinion. So they neither said he can or he cannot. So is that the thinking of this provision? Because this is where part of the provision that says you cannot just wake up and choose to do things the way you are. This is how you have to follow through.
Yes, of course, this provision is in alignment with the state of emergency provision in the Constitution. Because now that we are going to have a federal police side by side with the state police, it will be necessary to ensure that the state police service functions without undue interruption by either the president or the vested authority in trying to take over the functions and services of the state police. Remember that this state police is going to be a creation of an act of the State House of Assembly. What we have just done is to do constitutional alteration to make it possible for state police to be established. The federal government is not going to run the state police. The state police will be run in accordance with the acts establishing it by the State Houses of Assembly. So when that begins to happen, this provision is provided to ensure that when the state police command becomes incapable of dealing with a security threat that will snowball into a national security problem, the president will, in writing, request and put in place an intervention that will take the responsibility. The federal police will now move in to take over the functions of that state police service. In this case, no longer a command. It's a police service because it's existing by creation of the law. For you to be able to move in and take over the functions of the state police, there will be need to follow established guidelines. And what we added in that provision is that for the president to do it, even if he directs the federal police service to move into any state to take over the functions of the state police service, he must refer it to the National Assembly. The National Assembly, like in the case of state of emergency, must be able to approve it so that know that this state police service and the federal police service is like giving effect to the police service function in a federation where the state police service will have its powers to be able to deal with issues of internal security in the states, you know. So it's not going to be at the whims and caprices of the president to wake up in the morning and direct an action to go and take over the police services in a state. There must be an underlying conditions and factors that will make it happen. Because if we are going to have a state police service, we should be able to allow the state police service to function, particularly as it will be created by the act of the State House of Assembly. So this separation of powers need to be guarded very jealously for it to be effective.
And you're right on that. It's the functionality that really matters, and perhaps that informs the concern of some who say that even the current architecture, security architecture, should inspire what a state police would look like. But let's go to what the guardrails are looking like, and that's, you know, part of decision making. It must anticipate problems. It appears as if the appointment has been guaranteed to be taken care of by both the governor, on the recommendation of the National Police Council, and a governor also, from this document, cannot unilaterally sack a state police commissioner. It has to be, subject to the scrutiny of the National Police Council. But what are the guarantees that the National Police Council itself is independent? Who appoints members of the National Police Council?
Well, to start from the beginning, the State Police Service Commission will start the process of selecting somebody who becomes the head of a state police arm, police arm. The Constitution is talking now about commanders, no longer commissioners of police. The state police service shall be headed by a commander, and that commander who will be appointed will first of all be recommended or suggested to the National Police Council by the State Police Service Commission. People who are qualified that can be so appointed, they make such recommendation to the National Police Council. It is National Police Council who now look at the people recommended by the State Police Service Commission and decide on the person to choose to recommend to the governor to appoint the person. And when the person is recommended by the National Police Council to the governor will still take that person's name to the State House of Assembly for confirmation. All these things will provide a lot of safety guards in making sure that the person who will be appointed will not be at the whims and caprices of the governor of the state. The governor is not going to suo motu announce that he has appointed a commander of police in his state. You have to go through the process, go through the National Police Council, come back, and then go to the State House of Assembly for confirmation. So if these safeguards are put in place, we have to allow the process to run. Remember that the National Assembly is always there. When we try something and it's not working, every law, including the Constitution, will be subject to amendment by an act of the National Assembly. So I think that instead of trying to pick holes and generate grave concerns about this and how the governors will become the headmaster in the police service, we should allow it to start. Because by the time you start, you see that the governor's powers are limited in doing this. And for the fact that the police personnel in that very state are indigenes of that state, it's not something the governor can start doing without a challenge from the indigenes of that state. If you don't put a proper and fit person to provide security that will concern all and sundry in the state, there are reasons for people to cry out. And you see also that there is also a provision for judicial review. If somebody does not agree with what has happened, he can go to court. Institutions can go to court to challenge any part of the process, to ensure transparency, to ensure that good people are selected to be in charge of security.
All right, there's more to explore with you. We could also talk about political calculations ahead of 2027, but we must anchor at this point, and thank you very much for coming on the program. We've been talking with the senator representing Anambra Central Senatorial District, Senator Victor Umeh. Thank you so much, sir, for your time.
Thank you, Bukola. The state police should be given a chance. That is the only way we can bring policing nearer to the people. Every hamlet, every community knows the criminal elements among them. And it is by bringing policing nearer to the people that people will be involved in trying to nip crime, on the board. The police will not be overwhelmed anymore. Everybody knows his neighbor. Everybody knows the attitude of everybody around the society.
All right.
So let's give them support. Yes, it's a very great opportunity for Nigeria to rejig policing in Nigeria. It has worked in other countries. This one, we forget about what the governors can do and focus on the intention and the process. The whole thing will reform itself when it commences operation. And
we'll be back to ask members of the 10th Senate like you if this has been a promise kept. Security to every hamlet in Nigeria. Senator Umeh, thank you for coming on the Morning Brief.